everyone. Welcome to the Bishop Gallery. My name is Stevenson Dunn Jr., and we are here for our artist talk for our show, Discarded, with two prolific and amazing artists, the two artists sitting here to me. One to my left is Mr. Juan Carlos Pinto, and the one to my right is none other than Mr. Al Diaz, who came together to put on this amazing show. So we're not gonna spend too much time with the pomp and circumstance. We're gonna kind of dig right into it, starting off with let's talking about Discarded, and I'm gonna deter to Al first, just because your piece is literally, it's been almost, in addition to being a piece, it's almost been like the artist statement, pseudo artist statement for the show. So if we could just talk about why Discarded, why did you do Discarded, why is that important, what is it about?
Well, it was really in response to the fact that Carlos was going to show. Originally, he told me, I mean, we spoke about this, I guess, over the winter, and he mentioned that he wanted to show the nature stuff, most of the birds, and I thought it would be important because of my concerns about particularly people in urban centers that have kind of. They don't have a lot of connection to the earth. When you become really cityfied, you lose that. You have a tendency to lose it unless you make a conscious effort. And what happens is it just becomes, people just forget about it, and it becomes this something that's out. It's people are just move away from being human to some degree. When you lose your connection to the earth, you definitely lose, some humanity. As far as that's a strong thing to say, but I believe that firmly. I completely believe that. And I thought it was an opportunity for me to make a statement about that. And because it is part of my value system. I mean, I grew up, I was lucky enough to spend time in the country and in the city as a child. I was a Boy Scout. I made an effort. I've backpacked through the Americas. I made a point of being out in the wilderness or to enjoy the earth because it's essential for me. It's something that of essence. It's part of who I am, and it's just important. And Carlos expressing and working with the Audubon Society images for the birds that migrate to New York, just felt it was appropriate.
So Carlos, even before the Audubon Society, we know you are the MetroCard Mosaic master. It's your work is well documented. But what made you? Well, before we get into Discarded in particular, what made you start this series of birds?
With the birds. You know me, I'm a reactionary guy. And I think it was when the candidate to the presidency of the United States started talking about the migrants as carriers of all diseases and a lot of burdens and societal cost. And I tried to make a statement using the natural forces of migration and diversity, especially in Prospect Park. I live in Brooklyn, and I think that clicked perfect to make let's say, a kosher manifesto about migrations and diversity. That's the beginning. But I learned, I'm learning a lot about the pine warbler. I got no idea what that little animal does. And now I'm re-educating myself, keeping the recycled source of materials as the source.
And is there anything, what's the most interesting part about working on this particular series of work?
The amount of the diversity itself is, as Al, when I first met him working, he was doing a beautiful poetry with the signage of the subway. And the restriction was the amount of letters he got, and he had some rules. In this case, it's incredible, some 275 little animals who comes every year, maybe more. Doesn't count. That means it's a lot of now portraying birds without trying to be too radical. Just using garbage is enough radicalism to come, now it's just the beauty and diversity.
And so for you, using the birds as symbols of migrants and migration is the message that you're sending about using a particular, at least that's how you started.
Yeah.
But over time, it's grown even beyond that, that you yourself have become quite the bird watcher, correct?
Yeah, let's say. I'm following bird watchers, basically.
Okay.
There's a lot of groups and social media where, they're professional photographers out there who, when you throw your thing to social media, you lose certain rights, I think. You give away some rights. But I don't want to get sued. The bird don't want to sue you, but the photographer, yes.
The bird.
Yes.
And lastly, some of these animals are endangered species, correct?
Yes.
So how has that affected the work?
Well, they give me a list of 7 animals who are really endangered in New York State. But for that, I'm working with John Sear, a 20-footer mural, mosaic mural in 163 and Broadway. We are going to Azúcar to do the plans and the breaking tiles and stuff like that. And that animal's going to be presented in a permanent form. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Where's that slated to be?
And nearby the
It's a
campus.
mosaic.
Yeah, it's a big
tile, broken tile.
Yeah.
mosaic.
Like we did in George Avenue.
Right.
But in this case, it's more obvious, the image. Yeah.
So let me ask you both this, and whichever one you want to answer first, just jump right in there. And you kind of started alluding to this, but I want to dive in deeper. Why was it important that, two guys who live in, Brooklyn, do something about the environment? Like, why was that compelling to you guys in the first place? And I'm going to start with Carlos. I know I said it doesn't matter, but I'm going to start with Carlos because you already touched on this, and we're going to kind of circle back to that point earlier.
Well, as you know, I grew up in the 80s in Guatemala. In that time, my mother-in-law teach me, if you are not revolutionary, when you're young, you have no heart. And I'm not, she said loud, she said, if you have no money when you're old, you have a brain, she said. But she wrote San Francisco, man. But it's the 80s Guatemala. And we were in love with revolution. Social change. And that grow up as a Catholic and a Jesuit family. And I saw people dropping the Bible and grabbing an M16 and go. That was the type of kind of Marx revolution going on, Cuban sponsored thing. But we lost that revolution. But I'm still a revolutionary, and I think fight for Mother Nature is just change color from red to green. This is my statement. In New York, it's so generous, giving so much trash. God bless New York.
Good trash.
Yeah.
Top-notch trash.
Yeah.
Top notch, there's nothing wrong with a little dumpster diving in New York City. But Al, you grew up Jacob Reese, you grew up here in Brooklyn. Hey, I didn't know that you were so in touch with nature. Like,
Dude, in the 80s, I traveled to Guatemala in the 80s. I was there during the revolution.
Yeah. Looking for a jaguar.
I was in the jungle. I was in La Canjaha, because it's just something that was. It's just something. It's a part of my value system.
Yeah.
It's like
how did it get there? Growing up in I'm a Brooklyn kid. I don't know
something
anything about
that was
the forest.
Okay, look, like let's talk about actually. Jesuits kind of cool. It's like the intelligentsia of the Catholic Church. But the thing is that I grew up Catholic, but I became jaded with that kind of iconic iconography or like it didn't carry that kind of spiritual weight but the earth and things of real things like that you can actually worship to some degree. to me, have much more like not religious, but spiritual
Yeah.
potency, and that's where and I would do these jungle hikes. I went through. I mean, I've been through up and down Central America, Mexico, South America. I've been to Costa Rica, like 7 or 8 of the national parks there.
Wow.
And I would do solo hikes, and for me, it was a very spiritual experience to be, and in some cases, very dangerous experience. I'm lucky, to not have killed myself, but it was enriched, and I mean, like thoroughly, like being one with the earth. That to me was a real spiritual experience that replaced all the other stuff that seemed vapid to me.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, it's become part of my value system.
Yeah. Tell us about some of this dangerous hiking you've done. Like, this is totally off topic, but
I did one really foolish trip once in Monteverde, in a famous. It's in central Costa Rica, where I was supposed to be out for 2 days, and I didn't expect. I had like a 30-pound frame pack with all my stuff in it, and I didn't expect the rain to come down the way it did, but it was a rainforest. So it rains. It was raining. So, dude, I was waiting to water this like waist high, yeah, and finally, and it was getting dark, and I'm like, like, where's the cabin? They said it was like, but it was like I must have hiked for 12 hours, and then finally, just before it got dark, I found this cabin, and there was a kitty there to keep me warm. I found some dry matches. It was like, but it was like, I've been to near volcanoes and stuff like that. Just, with the mountains shaking while you're hiking. It was just,
what? That's good.
I did a lot of rock climbing when I was in my 20s. So I've been.
So you've gotten out of the concrete jungle, so to speak.
Big time. Yeah, I started doing that when I was, like I mentioned before, I was a Boy Scout at St. Mark's Church. Okay. And we go camping trips, but that was just the introduction. That was, I was like 12, 11, so started doing backpacking then. And I got a taste for it. And I was a city kid, but I wasn't the only one, And then as a teenager, I worked for American Youth Hostels, like, fixing equipment and issuing it to people that would go on camping trips and stuff. So I was always around this stuff. I always had equipment.
So in the contrast, right? Yeah. You grew up in the country, in the farm, right? So tell us about that and what that was like for you. What kind of farm?
My father started planting coffee, and he got chickens, pigs, and that means was food all the time. We were 7 in the family, and I don't remember hungry because what's there? We got a self-sufficient. Well, no, it says
self-sufficient.
The first time that I remember recycle was the shoes of my elder brother. My mother cut the tips of the shoes, and I have shoes now.
Yeah,
we pass along the clothes, and we were very resources. We use everything.
right.
And that's maybe the seeds of the genesis of these tendencies now. Or maybe I'm a cheap bastard and I don't give money to our supply store.
Except for friends.
Yeah.
So you kind of grew up on the farm in nature, but how did you start working with Metro cards?
Over here in New York, that's an old story. Like 12 years ago, I basically skipped the turnstile and was a plain clothes cop. They gave me a $125 ticket. And I get angry. And if I get angry, I get creative. And once a bunch of Metro cards in the floor, pick it all up and chop the shit out of the Metro cards. Just to break it. But I start seeing separating colors, And at that time I was doing a portrait of John Lennon. And I basically imposed the colors of the John Lennon portrait, and that's the genesis of the make posters to protest public transportation prices.
When was that? When did you
Oh
start?
man, that's 2000, after September 11th, 2002, around that.
Yeah.
2004.
It's almost 20 years now. 17,
Almost,
18
almost.
years.
But the funny part is my wife told me, why you get angry? You have a fake ID. They issue the summons to the non-existent.
You know,
You're just an angry guy.
so it's funny. You told me this story a million times, and you've never
No,
mentioned the fake ID.
now I feel I'm paying my taxes.
Yeah, you're like, I
never
can
heard that fake ID part till now.
Yeah, right? Like, I feel like, oh,
So
that's
like,
hilarious.
wait a second, dude.
No, now
$125 to like some guy who don't even exist.
So we should be
a picture
thankful.
of character.
We should be thankful
Like a
for
sample,
the police officer.
A picture of character.
So you should say thank you to this police officer. He inspired a whole body of work.
I think I still having that thing. I never pay it anyway. When I realized, wait a minute, you're taking too serious this thing.
These guys inspired you.
So just kind of weaving in and out of the threads here. So the Mosaic series of Metro cards got started because of your ticket with the
Yes,
police,
right?
right? So
Ultimately,
this is a stretch here, but I'm gonna, this is, my job, right? So gotta talk about. So we want to talk about wet paint and the subway symbols and why you started using that.
well, that's okay. It's similar
But
to
before you tell that story, I want you to tell another story about a recent experience, kind of the contrasting, right? He's like covered on New York One, Brooklyn media is using his work, and contrasting it started because he ran into police. And I think MTA has sued you as well at one point,
No,
right? Or they tried to.
They tried.
to. Oh, what about the instance of you with the Vando police and the proclamations the same week? Could you tell us a little bit of that story?
that just happened to be during the same. I had actually, I was doing the same on graffiti for a while. And that's a story unto itself. Why I started doing the same old graffiti again after like 40 something years. 78 to 2016 is what? How many years?
40.
Not quite, 30,
38.
38. 38 years. Anyway, so this was like one of the last singles that I would do. And it's funny because I was with my girlfriend Mariah. We went into the R train station at Prospect. No, it's what's it called over there? Near the Prospect Expressway. That was stopped there. I guess it's Prospect Avenue or whatever. I always forget the name of that place. And so when I went downstairs, there was a maintenance lady who I'd seen around. She's not a very cheerful lady, and she kind of gave me a dirty look, and us a dirty look as we came in. And we noticed that the train was like delayed. It was late at night. It must have been 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. And the first thing I thought was maybe I shouldn't tag because this lady looks like, I don't want to mess with her. So what do? I said, Mariah, stand right there. I'm going to tag her. I mean, just like it's always trust your gut.
Yeah.
Always trust your gut. And I usually do, but I just didn't that time. And I got caught. She didn't catch me.
Okay.
She brought the floor polisher. It's a brand new renovated station with cameras everywhere. That's why I asked Mariah to stand in front of me. Which, by the way, they never got me on film doing it. But it was her. She's a seasoned maintenance person who's been there, working for the MTA for a while. So she comes. So I do my tag. I wrote a SAMO as an end to mass. I did a classic SAMO, mass produced individuality. She comes down to by where we're standing, and she starts to pop like her polishing, and then she comes around to where the tag was because it wasn't on the wall. It was in one of those electrical housing structures. It's not part of the walls. It's a freestanding, like almost like a box. And she sees it and she goes, "You did this." She immediately says, like, point this to me. She said, "You did this. This wasn't here 5 minutes ago when I was here." So I was like, I didn't say shit.
Yeah.
She points to the black ink on my hand. She goes, "You got ink on your hand. I know you did it." And then she goes, "You're that motherfucker that wrote that thing about nobody sees me because they're all busy looking at their phones." So she knew, she was like a same old fan. She was reading the shit. I was like, "Oh, this bitch knows same olds." She goes, "They're looking for you. They're looking for you." So now she's fucking referring to the Vandal Squad. So I'm like, we gotta fucking leave. This is not good.
They don't mess
So
around.
she starts taking pictures when I'm on my back. We walked out of the station and kept moving. So a week or two later, I'm coming from Home Depot. I see her again at the same station.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she's like, like standing near me. And then I go to the other end of this, and then I play cat and mouse. And then she's like looking at me, and I'm like looking at her. So I go to the end of the station just to fuck with her. And then I get back on the train, and I got wood with me. I got like 8-foot pieces of wood. It's at night. So I go into the train comes. I go onto the train, and I'm just looking out the window, and of course she goes to see if I wrote on the wall. So which is what I was looking for, right? So about another 2 weeks passed, and the guy from Pepper. So I was signing some prints that I had done. Dave Navarro was at the studio, and the guy from Pepper Spray, Brian Hamill. So we're all doing working, and I get a call. And it's like, "Hey, hello, Mr. Diaz. This is Officer Grill from the New York Vandal Task Force." I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here. This is for real." And he says, "I'm about an incident that happened at Prospect Avenue." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is real now." So he tells me to go down for a DAT, a desk appearance ticket, as opposed to a warrant. So I'm like, you know what? So I'm guessing the guy. I'm on the phone guessing him because I'm still in disbelief, and these guys are here in there with me, and I'm like, look, I got a fucking audience. So I'm like, yeah. So I call so the first thing I do is I call my lawyer. He goes, "Don't fucking talk to him. Don't say anything to the cops. Never." Because my lawyer says, "Do not say anything to the police." He says, "We're gonna get you. We'll set you up with a criminal guy because they're not criminal lawyers." But I blocked the call. I blocked his number. I told him, "Yeah, call me in a day or two," but that never happened because I blocked his call. I went to Puerto Rico. I was 2 weeks past. I come back, another phone call from a strange number, right? It's him. It's his name is Officer Grill. Oh my God. I said, "So you got a warrant?" He goes, "Well, that's what I'm calling about." I'm like, "All right, dude. I'm going to give you," I said, "We're not going to talk. I can't talk to you. Talk to my lawyer." He goes, "Please, I just want to get this over with." Because now the guy's being a gentleman. He was being a fucking gentleman. So,
Because he probably knows who you are.
yeah, he said, he said, "Yeah, I didn't tell you that part." He's like, "Mr. Diaz, I know you're doing your thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of a fan." And I'm like, this guy's full of shit. And then rule number 1. I do not fucking trust cops. And that's it. Rule number 2, I do not trust fucking cops. And then even your lawyer says, don't talk to the cops. Right? So what happens? So I get the lawyer. I paid money for my lawyer. So it was a private lawyer. He calls him. They make arrangements. I get a call back from Grill. He says, "Listen, you're gonna come down. You take care of all the stuff you have to take care of," which included doing the Bed-Stuy thing. I wasn't aware that I was going to receive this thing, this what was it? A citation from the mayor
In a proclamation from the
and a
borough
proclamation from the borough president, acknowledging my
artistic
Collaboration to the
my
society.
artistic fucking contributions to New York City, right? Including same old graffiti. But meanwhile, I'm getting like, I got a warrant. I got to respond
You
to
got
a
a
warrant.
real order.
So they say, okay, come down the 27th. Come to the precinct. Expect it to spend the day in jail, and because you're going through the system. Because now the DAT is not on the table anymore. The desk appearance ticket is no longer available. Now I got a warrant, so I have to respond to a warrant. I am not a stranger to getting locked up. So I show. No, we do the thing at the Bed-Stuy Art Walk. I get these wonderful, which are framed, by the way. They're in my like parents' house, They're like, oh, this is so. They don't know half the story. I don't want to scare them.
Just tell the good parts.
So I get these awards, and then like a few days later, and I tell my lawyer, he's like, "Oh, isn't that ironic?"
The timing, right? They're gonna give me.
I show up. I get up like 5 a.m, get there but like 5:45. The guys are waiting for me. Hello, Mr. Diaz. They were total fucking gentlemen, except they had to slap the cuffs on me, put me in a cell, fingerprint me, take me through the system. And of which it was 8.5 hours, which is the total, the record-breaking shortest time that anybody's ever been through. 8.5 hours in the system is, let me tell you, that's your fucking gift. That's because they keep your paperwork on top. I don't know if you've ever been arrested, but 8.5 hours is like, what the? Why is that guy leaving? Everybody's like, what the fuck, man? This guy just came in. So they walked me through the system. It was like that, and I was well,
You brought medals to
no, but my lawyer was telling the judge, and on top of that, as he goes, the judge says, there's an order of protection with this case, and then she's like, get out of here. She's like, throw out the order of protection because the worker, the maintenance lady, thought that I was going to go push her down a flight of stairs. She goes, she had to put an order of protection against him. Yeah. And then the judge was like, get out of here. That ain't going to happen. So it was unconditioned, no conditions, except that I had to, I forgot what it's called.
Court no time soon.
It's six. I got to stay out of trouble for 6 months, and then the case is expunged. So I didn't have to serve any community service, any fine, any of that, which is why you pay a criminal. My lawyer, by the way, worked for the DA's office, so he's like, he's like a seasoned criminal lawyer. Yeah. So
no more same-os.
So after that, I was like, I don't know about same-os. But the minute first of all, the Vandal Squad follows you on Instagram. If you are a notable graffiti artist with some history, they're on you. They're like, hey, I'm following you now. But it's like Joe Schmo. It's not New York City, citywide Vandal Task Force. They're not gonna. That's not their handle, right?
Because I feel like we will keep going down this rabbit hole, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's just so ironic that. The same a week apart, right? You have the warrant, and you get
sign the certificate. Thank you for your contributions to the multicultural scene. New York, whatever art world or whatever. But it was So. But I thought that was great.
It's real.
If it's 8.5 hours in jail, it's fun. It's still a kick. But
you get home in time for supper.
Yeah, it was still light out when I left.
So I just kind of pivoting a little bit. So Carlos, tell us about why you want to work with Al Diaz, and I'm gonna have Al ask the same question. But you guys seem to, really get along well. You have a great synergy. What makes you want to work with Al?
I'm a fan of the work of Al since I get aware of it. I didn't knew him, I knew the story. I was, in that time, I was very active in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I always live in Flatbush, but I work in Sigmar Place around Tompkins Square. And I met this Puerto Rican activist with the New York Poets Cafe. And I started working with gardens, and you over here, yes, over here, the story of graffiti basically. And one day I met Al, and I was aware he was using the signage of the subway, and I was using the metro cards. That's kind of compatible. Plus, I'm still learning English. English, I don't know, my fifth language. I'm trying to make poetry too, in coding and some of that I have the opportunity to weave some and make mistakes, semantic and grammatical mistakes, because English is not my first language. I'm trying, praise the effort.
And what has the experience been like? This is you guys' second show together, right?
Yeah.
So what has it been like? What was the first show?
The first show was about the Subway series, right? It was happening with the New York Yankees and the Mets, something like that. And I think I'm a Yankee fan. You can see that. And I think that was the first collaboration, and was I think in that time we were trying to curate with the gallery, inviting the Rivington School to come here. And there's no space for the old schoolers in the Lower East Side anymore. And you guys were generous to open the door to this new experience. And happens I was kind of semi-adopted by one or two that artists, including Kenny Lazuka or Linus Coraggio. A few of them, I'm a good friend of them. And I brought Al with me to see Kenny.
Oh yeah, we had a good time up there.
We went to see
season 4, right?
Was to catalyze the idea for the first show. Somehow we believe in some kind of healing powers behind the artwork. And I don't have.
Do you feel like you both share that?
Yeah, I think I have. He eloquently talk about that type of statement. So this is not an easy Sunday, though. It's a real thing.
Don't worry, he's not going to get out of here without reading this to us.
No, I'll
We'll say that to the end.
I didn't have to get up to read it.
Yeah, no, we'll save it for the end. That's why we don't save it to the end, but we definitely, it needs to be read aloud, I think.
But yeah, I'm looking for a future in a serious collaboration too. Well, this is serious, but let's say the creation of a book where an image and a poem, and that's going to be a good addendum to keep the collaboration.
And vice versa, what has it been like working with Carlos? What unique things have come from
Carlos is probably the hardest working artist that I've seen. He's very prolific, amazing amount of work. I'm like, how does this guy make so much work? And I admire that. I respect that. I think it speaks like volumes when a person, everything they do is about art, is about creating, because there's so much dilettantes and some like wannabes in this city of ours, that people that they do a little this, a little that, but they don't really dedicate themselves and put it out there. And Carlos is one of those people who that's all he does. And that's that's the kind of artist I like to surround myself around, and there are few. So it's important for me, to be in that environment.
The other bridge, I'm sorry, but it's the Latino thing.
That goes without saying. That goes without saying.
No, but let's talk about that though. It's funny. That was my next question. It's like y'all both.
It's a tribal thing. I think that people, birds of a feather. I totally believe that. I don't believe in any exclusion of other people, but I was raised in the Lower East Side in the 60s and 70s, and it was conga drums in the background, and that's like in my it's like as soon as I hear that, or I speak, I was raised speaking Spanish, so I'm bilingual, and it's beyond from like I've spoken about this before, and it's not you don't translate things. You shift mode. Your brain thinks in Spanish. You dream in Spanish. You dream in English. You dream in it's not the same thing. There's certain things you cannot translate, and that's part of it. You shift from one to the other, and that's the same connection I had with Basquiat. We became friends because of initially. Because we shared ethnicities,
You're
and
both
it's
Puerto
just Puerto Rican, and he lived in Puerto Rico for a minute. So and it's just certain things, slang, stuff like that you understand, and no one else is going to understand because they don't have that experience,
The common cultural experience,
and that's all it is. It's really it's a very basic human thing, and it's birds of a feather.
I've been trying to send without response messages to the Museo del Barrio. That's, as an ethical group, that's the only venue we can represent. But they've been stuck in some strange curational drama, and these type of statements they cannot refuse. So we can show them they're Latinos or how. Doing the management of trash and kind of hip hop in that.
It's like who can deny its relevance?
Yeah, there's the haters. In the traditional, let's say Latin American dude, it's kind of obsolete, and this to contemporary.
What do you mean by that?
They love Frida. They hate Diego. Let's say that. Martin said. These are.
What do you mean by that? Explain that more.
I end up trapped doing kind of pop icons, and I'm tired of that. Like I know more freedom from him. I'm in a good direction. But I have to pass through that, understanding Warhol, understanding pop art. I have to. It's because I'm not anti-scholastic, but I didn't went to school for this. And the University of the Streets. And that's another compatibility with my brother here. Regardless, we pay attention. We're readers. We're readers.
Everybody don't have to go to school to get educated.
No. And we can use this kind of superpower to share with the community. And there we skip the turnstile of race. We can include everybody.
That's dope. I like it.
Anyway, got a fake ID though.
It goes a long way.
We're gonna be Carlos Grill.
Grill.
You gotta play homage to that. No, grill is like barbecue grill.
That's how we spelled it. No, but the dude was he was a total gentleman.
At least he was trying to get you to think he was. So
yeah, well, he acted in that manner. I don't know the guy from Paint, but he treated me like
if your wet paint body of work, I see you getting more ambitious, larger, and then the bird series. Like kind of what do you want to see in the future? What would you like to see it develop into? Because I know this is something you both are very excited and dedicated to getting out there and growing. So I'm gonna start with Al. So we'll I see now you're doing the digital formatted prints and not just the original wet paint signs. What's the direction of your infamous?
I mean, at some point I'm gonna make an extreme right or left and leave this because I've been working with these letters for about nine years now.
Oh.
And it has evolved immensely. I'm able to write things. At first I did a lot of tongue twisters because of the limited alphabet, So, but now it's becoming more grammatically correct, and I have a few vowels, and it's but at some point it's just I need to change.
To what?
I don't know that part we don't know yet.
What about present?
But I mean, like
As it is to the MTA, I can see this in
I
a train
think at
station.
some point that's what I would like to do is do large like this. I mean, in terms of
Inside
actual
the train
pieces.
station.
But since I do have this, and I think I've mastered this to some degree. The use of a constrained alphabet and with the certain look, this MTA look, and also it's got a little bit of a ransom note effect to it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't have much. There's no one competing with me with this aesthetic.
I did a show 12 years ago with this, I forget his name, but in a course set in Midtown Manhattan, and this dude used to call himself a serial killer. With serial boxes, he ransom note poetry.
Cool.
But I remember
That's cool.
something like that, but he wasn't creating your own typography and integrate like you are doing. He was just putting words. Good job.
Well, this is a similar process, the scissors.
Oh, well, it's funny. It definitely has that like 90s movie, 80s movie. You get an envelope. It's
But it's the thing about a constrained writing is that you have to think. You have to. It's like a one-legged race. Is how you always tie. You got to tie off that leg and work with what you got.
It's funny. And you didn't necessarily mention it, Carlos, but that's also another thing you guys have in common is that the use of mediums automatically constrains you. You talk about having a limited alphabet, but I remember you very poetically explained to us when you first started doing the MetroCard mosaics is like painting with only 5 colors, right? And so, now that you've kind of, like you said, the icons, that kind of got people to pay attention to it, right? Yeah. But now you want to move the work to somewhere that's more in the direction you want to go. What do you, aside from the book, is there anything in particular that you like to accomplish, particularly with the birds?
I took the train, or they already developed a new system of payment. There's stations with
I saw that scanner today.
That means the source of material that I'm using have a caducity that's gonna die in 2020. Say that. I have a little stash in my house, but I remember this is already dead. It's a dead source. But when this finish is done, meaning they have a date of due date for. And what I do, I can do the same with tile or ceramics or broken things. Recycle is a lot.
So before we open the floor up, is there anything you guys want to say or that we didn't cover that you wanted to get out to the public?
I'm going to read the sign.
All right. Yes. Perfect.
All right. I'm going to read it remotely from here.
Yeah, we'll get some B-roll of the sign later.
Yeah. Okay, it says, man can be a merciless predator, cruel, callous, graceless, and crass, intent on destruction and wastefulness. Intent on destruction and wastefulness, instant gratification, abusing our planet's limited resources for personal gain. In response to man's disregard and disrespect for nature, we feel compelled to reuse discarded materials for creating art.
It says it all there, right? It's almost like the artist statement, right? You don't need an artist statement with the art. It says it all for you.
Well,
it's perfect. It's kind of perfect.
Mission statement.
Anything that you want to close out on, Carlos? Thank you for that.
Looking forward to future collaborations and I think together we can apply to institutions who are out of New York. Somehow this became a very New York situation. It's a waste of New York. But, New York is still kind of neurological, magnetic center of culture this side of the Atlantic. we can expand, we can share this.
Go to other cities, do similar things. That's awesome.
I think that these two, when they're grouped, they have a certain strength for presenting to institutions.
Yeah.
I think it does because
Museum.
it's a very cohesive
So many layers of
Botanical gardens, natural museums.
collaboration. It's completely cohesive. It makes perfect sense to the most narrow-minded person. They could understand that there is a continuity here.
Well, you guys have so much continuity on so many levels, right? You talked about it today, both being Latino artists, both, being educated in the street, so to speak, as far as art and different things.
Yeah, Lower East Side.
The discarded materials, right? The MTA materials, the constraint, the chosen constraint, right?
There's quite a few parallels.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels here. So,
And they don't talk to the police.
and you guys both don't trust the police, right? Why would you? So this is pretty awesome. But we have some wonderful patient guests that have been here with us all evening, and so we want to at least give them the opportunity to ask a couple of questions. So if the floor is now open for any questions you might have.
I didn't come prepared with questions. But since you were just speaking about your materials and recycling, and you were asking Carlos, what's going to happen with them? You don't have a sample. I was wondering if you could speak about the tiny ones you're working on.
We saw that to
The
Mexican lady.
I mean, the ones
It's
with
informal.
the hole punching.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sold a small one, a phalanx.
Fela Kuti, yeah.
A little tiny one?
Yeah,
It's like this big.
1 inch.
Oh wow! Micro.
Like
Yeah.
pixelized, like was it Chuck Close kind of
Yeah,
style?
base and chalk, yeah.
Wow. You gonna do more of those? Those are kind of
Yeah,
difficult, right? They take a long time.
It's a code, It's a code. In my case, I can go in the direction of Jeff Koons if I want. I can hire 20 Mexicans. Let's go. But I don't think I'm gonna go in that direction. It's not a factory. But can be reproduced and postcards, so that kind of that is okay. But the maker have to be myself. I can teach you how, but
No, I was
I'm gonna create my own competition.
No, I just wanted
Create
to
my own
to go-
Did you have a question? Kind of a regular.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what.
She worked for the FDA. Yeah, she worked with them.
Oh man, we were talking smack. We were talking smack out
Can you
there.
get me a big ass stash of records? I got a question for you.
And what are they doing with all the Metro cards? What are they doing with all the Metro
What do
cards?
they do with that
So
stuff?
once they're obsolete,
They feed it to people.
No, I
it's
think,
like in the school lunch.
It's soil green.
yeah, I'm curious about the artist process and maybe just getting,
Great question.
you've been making your art for decades and, as a sort of a new artist going in, I'm curious about, where do you get your inspiration from when you're not necessarily maybe feeling like working, and then what are your go-tos for sort of getting back into the mix or coming up with new ideas?
You want to take it
It's
first?
just, that's like everyday stuff, I mean, you have a conversation and someone talks about something that you may or may not agree with, and you want to remark on it, and that can spur, wanting to express something, and then in the process, something, it's like the butterfly in the forest thing, where one thing leads to another, and the thing is not to allow oneself to become stale, so that you have to get.
Yeah, you get contaminated.
You have to keep it going, And it's work. It's work.
It's hard work.
It's hard work. Working,
artist is hard work.
Our work is
Emphasis on the work, right?
It's work. It's work.
It's-
It's like, you know, you look around you and you want to, and I guess the longer you do it, the more tricks you learn in terms of remaining stimulated. But, you know, we go through periods of, you know, like, I think in my 20s, I was like, I started playing music for that reason, because I'd been making visual art all my life. And then I was, you know, surrounded by people like Jean-Michel who wanted to, you know, who knew that he wanted to do art. And I was like, you know, maybe. It's kind of like, I want to play music. That's what I want to do. It's like, that's what I'm more excited. So, but I was doing something creative, but it was that. And then as a result, I did, you know, and I got into it, and I got more and more, and I started making my own instruments, you know. It's an innate drive to create. You don't do it because you have to. It's because you have to do it. It's not like, oh, I want to. No, you need to. Otherwise, you're going to explode or implode, or something's going to go wrong. So it's got to come out. It's got to come out.
I think coming to New York from Guatemala, and coming from a very humble context, I got a scholarship to go with the Jesuits college, and I have to perform over 95% percentile in academics. Didn't keep my scholarship, but basically it was $1 a month. That was the cost of my education. Like, you know, shelter and food, that was make a little debt and motivate me to leave the country and find a job and pay my debt. And that's what I did. But I ended up in New York with a call. It's no the police officer grilled, and he said it was a call of existence. And our work. Came to New York without knowing the game or knowing nothing. I had information about art as an instrument of education, WPA programs, or the Mexican muralism, that type, pragmatical, social, integrated art. And I came to New York, and the key was to surround yourself by artists who are producing things. For that, Kenny Azuka for me was a, hey, these guys, good, and I like his work. But around the hours, a lot of distraction too, you know? The party animals and drugs and God, it's distraction. And you gotta create certain level of, it's like going to the gym every day. You gotta stimulate that, discipline. Do it every day.
All right. So last but not least, Al, you're gonna tell us a little bit about your book.
So yeah, I kind of touched upon why I brought this back after 38 years. It was a problem. The problem was that Jean-Michel had become bigger than life, and that there was an entire generation of people that saw this word, Samo, and that's all they saw. It was like, okay, this and a crown, which the crown that Basquiat drew and this graffiti Samo never appeared together ever, except unless it was fake, which fake, like you'll see Samo in a crown. But there was nothing said of it, which is like, first of all, it's not giving this brilliant literate concept that we came up with as teenagers any kind of justice, because there wasn't just a tag, it was like what we wrote along with the Samo. Samo was not a person. Samo was a product that we had come up with. It was based, and it didn't mean same old shit. Whoever says that is wrong. It does not mean anything. It's just a brand name. And it was a play on the whole the cults. In the 70s, there were all these cults. There's always cults. The 70s seemed to have a lot of religious cults. And we were making fun of religious cults. And that's what we were doing. And yes, the expression same old originally meant same old shit. But this had nothing, this was not what, same old did not mean same old shit. It was the name of this cult. It was the name of this cult that we were trying to push, which never existed. We were just like in the background laughing about it, thinking, and people, and believe me, to this day, I still get people that are very adamant, like, but if you're talking about the same old shit, and they call it a movement. And the only movement that was involved was fucking our bowel movement, There was no movement. There was no movement. But we think it was very effective in the fact that there are people that actually thought it was a movement, and that actually thought that it meant same old shit, whatever. It's like all this missing. The point is that there was so much miss and half information. People just would say, "Oh, Basquiat, same old," but wouldn't know anything about the graffiti, what we were doing, how it was like the tricky, writing that went along with it. So I thought it was really important for me to educate an entire generation, what that was, and besides, writing the graffiti, posting it on Instagram so that a new generation could see what same old was. That helped to enlighten people, and then ultimately it led to me, publishing a book to explain what this whole thing was. And still to this day, people, get really pissed off. Like people that are in the dark get pissed off. Like, how could you write Basquiat's tag? And like they're like crying. They're brokenhearted because they find out that it wasn't just Basquiat. Because and all due respect to my one-time friend who's dead, it wasn't just him, and I was a very important key player in this concept, being that I was the graffiti writer. You Shaw never wrote graffiti until he met me. So it's really important. Because I'd be like walking past it and hearing people talk about it, like at a museum, and just like you hear the crazy, like, dude, I've heard the craziest shit. If I had to write the stuff that would be a great like a description of like if I were to write all the misinformation, Basquiat would be a whole nother person. I heard a young couple saying, because they were looking at a painting where he had drawn the Warner Brothers logo, and I swear to my mother, this girl says to they're obviously on their first date. She goes, "I didn't know." The guy says, "I didn't know that Basquiat worked for Warner Brothers," and she goes, "Oh yeah, he did." Oh yeah.
Trying to get labor.
I thought that was so.
He's from Jamaica.
Yeah, that's the other thing. He's from Jamaica. He worked for Warner Brothers, so he had a pretty good insurance policy, health insurance, right? But no, the other thing was that recently at the Brand,
The Brand,
it's a great show, but it's called the Brand Art Education Center. There's no information about any of that stuff. One of the interns, first, I overheard this. I'm standing there, and she goes, "Yeah, he died when he was 28." And I had to say, "No, he was 20. He's part of the famous 27 Club. So he died when he was 27." She goes, "Oh, I was just doing the math." And then I stick around to hear what else. And she's talking to this woman, and then the woman goes, like, there's two cars crashing into each other, like he did would do. And then she goes, why are the two cars crashing into each other? And she goes like that. He was in a car accident and in Harlem. And that he probably like remembered that. And I'm thinking, first of all, he was 10 years old. He got hit by a car, and it was in Flatbush. It wasn't in Harlem. But I'm thinking to myself, she probably thinks because he's black, every person every black person, anything that has anything to do with black people happens in Harlem. I'm like, oh, this is fucking awful. At that point, I didn't even say anything. I was just like, get me out of here. This is the intern. This is the intern giving information to people that are fucking like there. And I'm like, how could you, and then you're called the Brand Art Education Center. So these are the people that are giving information. So by the time they leave there, he was in a car accident in Harlem while he was going to work at Warner Brothers. I'm like, this is how history is fucking disseminated. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, woo. So there you go. So the next time you read some shit about Napoleon or Julius Caesar, you know that shit is bullshit. It never happened. It never fucking happened.
Fake news.
Fake news. But it's outrageous. And then once again, it's because of all that misinformation or half information or bullshit, straight up bullshit that the other half of SAMO, and to write a book about SAMO to explain what that was about, and that it wasn't just this, Basquiat, Crown, SAMO.
And not ruining any surprises, but we don't have to go into details, but you're working on even more to go even more in depth, right? Another book.
Yeah, we're working on a couple of things.
Yeah,
including
we'll get to that. But in the same vein, right? To correct the story.
Because you know what? It is my obligation. It is not something that it's not just something. I mean, of course I want to do that. It's part of something that excites me. But it's also my obligation, being alive and being, having this information is to tell the story correctly, because it's my obligation. That should, first of all, it should bother anybody who lived through something and sees that information being handed like incorrectly, being retold incorrectly. It's your responsibility to correct that information.
I have a little.
I got a gift.
That's wonderful. That's a beautiful gift.
There you go.
This is beautiful. Look at that. My brother's so good.
Picture with y'all real quick.
Yeah.
This is fucking great, man. Yeah.
Well, guys, we're gonna take a quick picture, and I think we're gonna call that a wrap.